2022 is quickly approaching, and anybody who's looking at buying a car in the new year should be asking themselves the question of which car is the best car to buy, which cars are the best investment, which ones have a chance of appreciating or at the very least not depreciating at the same rate of other cars, and just in general, which vehicles are the best ones to buy financially. And so in this video, we're going to be talking about that exact same question, and I'm going to be breaking down some of the best cars that I think you should be keeping an eye on in 2022. So whether you're somebody who's wanting to buy a car for personal use, for a Turo fleet, for a side hustle, for a side gig, whatever the case is, then this video is for you. So let's get started. Now, last week I made a YouTube video talking about the different cars that I am looking to buy for my own Turo fleet. And in that video, I broke down the different types of cars that I'm keeping an eye out for, why I'm looking to buy them, and at what price range I'm looking to purchase them for. Now, I realize that not everybody has a Turo fleet, not everybody wants to buy economical cars, and people want to buy cars that they can enjoy that may or may not go up in value. And so the reason why I want to sit here and make this video today is because the cars that I'm talking about in this video could work well for Turo in a side hustle, they could work well for personal use, and they may also be good investments as well. So they're kind of just an overall umbrella statement of saying, hey, these are cars that you should keep an eye on. Now, before we dive into the specific cars I want to talk about, if you guys could do me a huge favor, and if you could hit the like button and hit the notification bell for the YouTube algorithm, I would greatly appreciate it. This helps my channel grow because it helps let YouTube know that you guys are enjoying my content, and thus they push my content out to a new audience. So if you guys could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, whenever I was making this video and I was trying to pick out a handful of different cars that I thought would be good bets in 2022, I had a handful of pieces of criteria that I wanted these vehicles to meet. Number one, is there a demand associated with these vehicles, either right now or in the future? Number two, will these vehicles appreciate in the future, either because they're just simply appreciating because they're becoming a collector's item, or appreciating due to supply and demand? And number three, if they're not appreciating, how quickly will they be depreciating? Because the reality is a lot of cars are going to be depreciating in 2022. That's almost unavoidable, but there are some that will be depreciating less than others. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. So with all of this out of the way, let's dig into the very first category of cars that I think will be worth looking out for in 2022. And that is electric vehicles, but specifically not Teslas. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Teslas. I think that they're cool cars, and I actually wanted one for a really long time until I found out that they had pretty severe quality issues. But the reality is Teslas are becoming oversaturated. In fact, if you look on the Turo platform, Teslas are by far the most common car found on the platform, specifically Tesla Model 3s. But even from a personal car standpoint, there are simply a ton of Teslas out there. And I personally believe that the market is sort of becoming oversaturated. I think that if you want to get a Tesla because you just want a Tesla, you think that they're cool, it's your dream car, then I think sure, go ahead and buy one. I certainly don't think it's a bad purchase, but I think that if you're looking to buy one for the purpose of having a good return on your investment, either from reselling or from Turo, I personally think that there are other cars out there that are a bit better. Another thing that I think is important to know as far as electric vehicles and Tesla specifically is the electric vehicle tax credit. You see, whenever you purchase an electric vehicle, or I should say select electric vehicles, you can get a tax credit of up to $7,500. As these electric vehicles are being sold, that tax credit gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappears completely. With Teslas, this tax credit no longer exists because Teslas has sold too many Teslas in order to qualify for the full $7,500. But there are a lot of other auto manufacturers out there that do have the full $7,500 tax credit available to them. And so if you're somebody who's wanting to buy an electric vehicle and you want to take advantage of this $7,500 tax credit, there are a lot of other manufacturers out there that are still offering this major incentive. On that same note is new releases. So vehicles that are going to be released in 2022 or even 2023 that are going to be incredibly hot. This is actually something that HP and I have spoken about over the last couple of months. And to be honest, I'm kicking myself over it a bit. You see, HP and I know cars very well. Our entire life basically revolves around cars, and yet we weren't smart enough to realize that, hey, it may be a good investment to look at buying some of these new cars that are being released in 2021. For example, the Tesla Model S Plaid was a car that was released earlier this year, and yet people are reselling them used for way more than they paid for them new from Tesla directly. Another example is the Ford Bronco. I've been seeing Ford Broncos being sold for well into the $100,000 mark, which is just crazy to think about. Hindsight is of course 2020, but I would be lying if I said that I wasn't kicking myself a bit for the fact that HP and I did not buy any of these vehicles despite the fact that we knew that they would be hot cars. But it's not too late to plan for 2022 and 2023, and in the next year there will be a lot of hot cars that will be released new, and if I was a betting person, I would bet that there is going to be some huge supply issues with these cars when they come out. A few examples of these would be the 6th generation 4Runner, which is expected to be announced later in 2022. The Ford electric Lightning pickup truck is another great example. The Tesla pickup truck, the Cybertruck, could also be a good example as well, depending on when that comes out. These are all cars that I think are really great bets if you're looking to find that car that you could buy from the factory new and then potentially flip it for a profit upon delivery. Some other cars that could be really safe bets in 2022 are cars that have historically proven to hold their value quite well. 2020 and 2021, at least from a used car standpoint, has truly been unprecedented times. We've seen increases in value for used cars like we've never seen before. And so because of the massive appreciation that we've seen, it's really hard to gauge where the used car market is going to go. It's not uncommon for people today in November of 2021 to sell cars for around the same price that they paid for them. But is that going to continue in 2022? And to be honest, I don't know the answer to that question. So one safe bet that you could make whenever you're purchasing a car in the new year is finding those vehicles that have been proven to hold their value quite well. A few examples of these types of cars would be things like Jeeps, Toyotas, or Lexuses. All three of these manufacturers have proven themselves to hold their value time and time again. And the fact is, I don't think it's a matter of if the used car market's going to return to normal. I simply think it's a matter of when, and when the used car market does settle, I think that these cars that we've been seeing with an inflated value, they're going to absolutely sink like a rock, and that is really going to hurt the people that bought their car at an inflated price. And so if you're somebody that's wanting to buy a car, a really good way to protect yourself, at least a little bit, is to buy those cars that hold their value more than others. And my last tactic that I have, if you're somebody who's wanting to buy a car in 2022, is to look for those cars that haven't appreciated quite as much. Now, whenever we look at used cars and the valuation of these used cars, it's not a matter of if they've appreciated, it's a matter of how much have they appreciated over the last year. You just simply cannot buy cars at the same price today as you could a year ago, and that's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. But one thing that you can do if you're somebody who's wanting to buy cars is you can target those vehicles that haven't appreciated quite as much. For example, if we go over to the Car Guru Index, you can see that there are cars here that haven't appreciated quite as much as some other cars. For example, Audi and BMW have appreciated less than some other brands like Mercedes, for example. Audi has appreciated 15%, BMW 16.4%, and if we scroll down to Mercedes, you can see that has appreciated 21.84%. If we continue to look here, you'll see that brands like Hyundai has appreciated just under 33%. Kia has appreciated just under 35%. Lincoln has appreciated just over 31%. That is an indicator that these three brands are probably brands that you should avoid buying used because they are priced at a severely inflated price, at least compared to some of these other brands out there. There really is no perfect formula whenever you're looking at car valuations and trying to determine how much you should pay for a car and which cars are worth pursuing. It really just depends on your own risk tolerance. If you're somebody who's wanting to buy a car and you know that there's a good chance you won't keep that car more than a couple of years, then the price that you pay for that car and the valuation of that car at its purchase time is something that's going to hold a lot more value to you than if you're somebody who's buying a car for personal use and you're going to drive that car into the ground and you're never going to sell it. It really does depend on your end goal. For me, I'm a Turo host. I want to grow my Turo fleet. And so because of that, I put a really big emphasis on the value of the cars that I'm buying and how much they've either appreciated or depreciated. And so because of that, I'll avoid buying cars that have seen a 25 to 30% depreciation rate over the last year period of time, unless I can find that like one-off unicorn that isn't priced that way. But if I'm looking for just general cars, I will typically avoid the cars that have appreciated a significant amount, and I will instead target those cars that have appreciated less in comparison to similar makes and models. Ultimately, when it comes to buying cars today, November of 2021, and planning your car purchases for 2022, it's important to really figure out what you're wanting to accomplish. Do you want to buy a car for personal use? Are you wanting to grow a Turo fleet? Are you wanting to invest into a vehicle that has a chance of appreciating? All of these three things are things that can be accomplished in this car market. You just have to be a bit more strategic with how you go about doing it. Like always, you guys, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.